getting rid of all fear permanently.
That topic kind of smacks me in the face a little bit. Can you explain what you mean by getting rid of all fear permanently? There's part of me that feels like we don't want to get rid of all fear. I mean, fear
Hmm.
has a practical purpose,
All
right?
right, well, you would think. And I know a lot of people feel like we need some fear to keep us safe, and we need some fear for certain things. But this is what I believe, based on what I know about the brain and the effects of fear on the brain and body. The only time we ever need any fear is if our lives are in immediate danger. People say fear keeps you safe. Fear doesn't keep you safe. Fear keeps you stressed, is because the state that the brain goes into when we're in a state of fear is that the blood drains from the prefrontal cortex where we do our cognitive thinking to the back of the brain for that fight, freeze, flight state. And the problem with that means we don't have access to strategic thinking. So what I believe is we never need fear unless we're in immediate danger and we need to either fight right now, run away, or pretend to be dead. That's the only time we need it. Every other time, what we need is our cognitive thinking so that we can problem solve effectively, so that we can strategize, so that we can communicate and negotiate and be creative to solve all other problems.
That does help clarify that a little bit more. But now to get to the actual point of how do we go about getting rid of all fear permanently?
As we feel fear, what that is in the moment, apart from instinct, so in other words, we hear a sudden noise and we react, all other fear is based on implicit childhood memories that are informing the brain that we're in danger. The ridiculous thing is it happens not just with physical danger. This happens with what are other people going to think of me, or somebody's angry, or I've got to speak in front of people, or I've got to pick up the phone, or I've got to
Mhm.
take action that I'm scared to take, or like in my case, I've got to invoice someone. None of those things are dangerous, physically dangerous. But the unconscious part of the brain, so this is why it's tricky because we're not consciously aware of it. The unconscious part of the brain is referring to childhood memories that prove we're in danger right now. And so it's producing those stress chemicals like adrenaline and cortisol that cause that state of fight, freeze, flight. The answer to how to get rid of that is to change those references in childhood that prove I'm in danger. So we change those references, then we encounter the same situation. So in my case, invoicing someone, or I'm going to go on an aeroplane, or I've got to speak in front of people, or someone's upset with me. And the brain is no longer referring to those childhood memories that prove this is dangerous. And therefore, we don't have the chemicals, the adrenaline and cortisol that put us into that fight, freeze, flight, so we don't feel the fear.
It's not tricky, but the experience that we have is in our lives, we'll encounter something. For you, invoicing somebody,
Amongst a lot of other things I was frightened
or
about.
getting on an airplane, or there's a number of different things that causes that sense of fear. Getting on camera,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps
Yep.
speaking in front of a group produces that fear. And because we're in that situation, we think it is the event, the
Yes.
invoice, getting on an airplane, standing up in front of people that is actually causing the fear
Right.
inside. But the outside event, the circumstance doesn't really have the ability to cause the fear inside. The fear is coming from those past references that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So getting rid of fear is related to getting rid of what in our past is it linked to that's causing that. Flying on an airplane or standing up in front of people or getting on camera, filling an invoice had the ability to cause fear. It would have to do it for everybody. And
Absolutely.
it doesn't. There are people that have all kinds of different reactions to different situations. So understanding that and understanding that the fear is coming from within us,
Hmm.
that's the empowering bit. Now we can change that. We can take in control of that and thus eliminate the fear. So
That was beautifully explained.
I
I don't mean to.
sometimes it happens.
I don't mean to sound so surprised. No, that was really good.
I was just curious, do you have an example of a reference for you
You
that
think.
was related? Because I always find it interesting how the fear that we're feeling to something in the moment
Right.
what that is actually connected to in the
Yeah, I
past.
mean, I have a lot.
Mm,
And one of the ones that I have spoken about before here is because the first one that came to mind because we've just been mentioning it is my fear of asking to be paid. So, going into that fear state when I had to either give a quote for something or, send an invoice to someone or just ask
mhm.
someone for money that they already owed me. And I would feel that fear in the moment. The link for me was in my childhood being taught that if you ask, you don't get. And it was about manners, it was about being polite. Like when you go to someone's house, you shouldn't ask them for a cup of tea or whatever, or a biscuit. You wait to be offered. Although my conscious mind was completely unaware of that, the unconscious part of my brain was still referring to the childhood memories of me asking for something and then being told no. Well, now that you've asked, you can't have it. It was then putting stress chemicals into my system as I thought of asking to be paid. Again, without my conscious awareness, I would just feel the effect of those stress chemicals, the fear, and then I thought it was about the actual asking or money itself, and it wasn't.
Mhm.
I changed those
Mhm.
memories to the
Mhm.
opposite so that you always get, and that it's safe to ask. And now I don't feel that fear anymore.
Yeah, and that's the fascinating bit. We'll go into that in more detail in the webinar, but the reality is that the memories of the events that happened in our childhood are no longer happening in this present right now moment.
Yeah.
And the only place that that memory, that information exists are in our brain, that exists in data that we're carrying around in our brain. And our brains are very adept at being able to change that data.
And the unconscious part of the brain can't tell the difference between reality and imagination. So that's why right now, as you think of something you're frightened of, you feel the fear because the unconscious part of your brain thinks that you're encountering it right now and it's pumping those stress chemicals into your system that cause the effect.
Obviously, it's a little bit deeper subject than what we can put into just a single video here, but getting started with finding and changing those childhood references that promote the fear. We have a live webinar that we are going to be conducting on this coming Tuesday. For those of you that are seeing this live right now, so you've got a link going, and it will also be in the description.
Yes, so the description of this video, we've got a link to the free live webinar that we're doing on Tuesday, where we'll go into a lot more detail on exactly how this works, exactly how your implicit childhood memories are at the core of everything you experience, not just fear, but certainly things like fear of taking action that you know would get you towards
Hmm.
your goals, that you feel the fear of taking that. Changing those negative childhood memories results in you literally no longer having that. I did want to recap.
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
don't need fear unless our lives are in immediate danger. So check the links of this video. Feel free to ask us any questions, and we will see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye for now.